to know this.
Okay.
You're being
Oh,
a superintendent.
yes.
What's happening now, like everybody's going crazy. Like, oh, Trump and they're going to get rid of education. People really think there's not going to be any more public
So
education like tomorrow.
so, you know what I would advise people, this is my 33rd year in education. I would advise people to not freak out over that, to like listen to what is being said. And it's being said that we're going to give it to the states. We're going to, turn it over to the state. So what you have to be ready for is you have to be ready to lead and to work and create the best educational environment for whoever comes to be educated. So we don't have room now to blame, oh, okay, poor kids can't learn, black kids can't learn, Latin kids can't learn because there's a language barrier. We have to shut down those excuses and make sure that we have programs that face forward what the problem is so that we can get past the basic need thing to get to the level of learning that we need to
What's
get
the
to.
problem? Is the
Well,
problem racial? Is the problem socioeconomic? Is the problem curriculum based?
okay,
What is the problem?
it is, you just named all of them. So, now racial and races are two different things. So,
Explain.
it,
Explain.
it is there some cultural knowledge that's missing? The teaching population is predominantly white female. Okay, and those are the individuals who want to go into teaching. They want to go into teaching, and so they have a heart for teaching, so they want that. So now, do we have to do some work with creating a level of cultural competency so that people can have the right kind of empathy when they need? You can't just say, "Oh, Johnny is so bad, I can't teach him." It's that house he comes from. It's where he comes from, which is kind of code for those ghetto
Those
people
people.
there, right? So you have to make people feel like they have a level of expertise or give them a level of expertise where you know how to culturally teach a child or even set expectations for a
Okay.
child.
It how does cultural competency pair up next to Maslow's hierarchy of needs? You got Maslow talking about psychological needs, safety and security, love and belonging, self-esteem, self-actualization.
Okay.
But then
So
I have
let,
dynamics.
let's talk about the first three.
Okay.
Physiological need. If a child comes to school and they have their head on their desk because they get left at home with their younger siblings, or they don't have any parental guidance and they're playing a video game all night. As a teacher, you have to figure out how to make the adjustments. The main thing is like clothing and food. You can tell when a child is struggling, which is, when I led a school that supposedly had the bad kids, which I renamed as scholars, we had a clothing closet. There was an incident where a child got in trouble for, the cafeteria would throw food away at the end of the lunch cycle or whatever. So you can't give that food away. So this kid was going in the garbage can getting the food. And so the people in the kitchen were so into this rule that you can't use that food after they were like, you have to suspend him. I'm like, there's no way that I'm gonna
You're going to
suspend a
suspend a
child.
child for eating.
Right, for eating food out of the garbage can. It's like, no way. What we're gonna do is we're gonna figure something out
So
where
let
and
me ask
me.
this question. Let me ask this question. Is cultural competency the why?
Well,
I have problems with physiological needs.
some
Is
of it is
cultural
because some
competency,
people cannot imagine a
that's what,
refrigerator
yeah.
with just stale ketchup and mustard in it. Some people can't imagine that a child hasn't seen milk in their cereal for a couple of weeks. But it's once you connect to the information, I have not seen people stay hardcore. They thought about it and like, man, you know, And now, let me tell you, there are also people that were in that same position, but they just refuse to. So you have to, you just have to be able to know how to communicate with people and how to try to get people to get on board with a collective thing that makes it easier for us to educate these children and easier for the kids to want to be educated. Now, safety and security.
Mhm.
If you're at a home where, the parents are fighting, we've had some situations where we had to report, bruises and black eyes and things like that. And that is where the Child Protective Services is reported to Child Protective Services. Or if they have a parent that had worked for a long time, or a parent that's working in a low income position for many, many hours.
Mhm.
So, there are things that you can actually do, to help the child feel like, okay, you're at school, you're where you belong, you know. Like, okay, so if there's a child that smells like urine, there's little things you can do. All right. There, where they don't come to school in their uniform if uniform is required. Well, you can keep, a portion of the uniform at school, make sure that in the mornings or whatever, the aide in the class helps the child a little, just a little help with, body hygiene and things like that, and put the uniform on, and then they can take that off before they go home. But it helps the child feel like they belong. And you have to do it very discreetly. You can't do it in front of the other kids.
And you
You,
have to be a person the child themselves trust because
yes.
it's embarrassing.
And so let me tell you, so in the human developmental stage, anywhere from 0 to 6, you're still developing that basic trust of adults. And so you're relying on an adult, even if it's a teacher, you're relying on an adult for things like nutrition, affection, confirmation. Johnny, I'm proud of you. I am so proud of you. You are relying on an adult, a trusted adult. And so that is why it's important for a teacher to be able to build that trust. And
Where
and
does trust come in the hierarchy of needs? I see trust like terms.
in the hierarchy of needs. Well,
Yeah.
okay, so it's safe. It's the second level. It's safety and security. So
Okay.
for you to feel, adults want to be given compliments and want to um, half of the time we're operating not quite knowing if this is the right thing. And so, you feel great when your boss comes to you and say, Darnell, I want to tell you that project that you worked on, it resulted in this. And I am so happy that you're on the team. I feel like you can take us to this future. Just being able to say that as a principal, to a teacher, like, oh, I see what you're doing with the building skills by partnering two readers together. Now that's awesome. I'm going to mention that in the staff meeting. Kudos to you. So that is creating safety and security for everyone.
Hmm.
That not just the child. So that goes into the other developmental stages as well, because when you're between the ages of 1 and 3, you're starting to develop autonomy. Well, you need some confirmation before you feel safe to start doing things independently, making your own decisions, right? And then um, age 3 to 6, you start understanding what your boundaries are, because you start understanding what the rules and the things that you can and cannot do. And
And
so,
that's where property comes in. Some things are mine, which would mean some
yes,
things are not mine. So those
right.
are
So you start
boundaries,
learning
those are
those
rules.
rules, right?
Right. Even as a kid, like, they go through mine, mine. Well, they
Hmm.
understand some things are mine and some things are not.
And
Okay.
and so on Bloom's taxonomy, the love and the belonging. So safety and security, I am in a safe space. Nobody's going to come in this school and shoot up the school. And I'm saying that on purpose because 20 years ago, there was really no phenomena that somebody crazy could come in the school and shoot a lot of innocent children. Like now we have to have all kinds of security systems in place because there are some people
I
that are
was just
doing
about I was just about to ask that question that may have been dumb. Is that really a concern? Like,
absolutely, absolutely,
because
because
I'm gonna tell you, I don't think about it in the university until you just said that.
mhm.
I I'm sitting there pointing to the side of the screen.
Uh-huh.
Um, until you just said that,
So
I
and
walk into the university every week.
yeah. And you don't even expect anything. But, think
It
about
never
the
even
children
registered in my
in
mind.
Uvalde. I mean, I might not be saying the name right, but that was a typical day. That was a typical day for children. Nobody thought that anything like that. That was a typical day for those two teachers, and that was a typical day for all of the families involved.
And
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 kind of
it
going
ended
back to
up.
what you were saying, people who grew up with that will even people who grew up with it because it was a lot of violence in the school
Mhm,
that I came up in.
mhm.
And
Yeah, but it
is it
wasn't mass homicide, it was, how in the 80s and it was a
yeah,
death
yeah, yeah.
here,
It was
there.
it was
It
violent.
wasn't
It's now
mass.
escalated.
Hmm.
But why
Hmm.
would I get to the point that that doesn't even come in my mind anymore? Is
So
it
we're
that I
we're
think I
really
done got where
not
I spell
we're
able
really
or
not at that point yet because we keep just doing it again. We keep just doing it again and again and again. And we're still a country that sells like weapons of serious destruction um, indiscriminately. And what I mean by that is we ought to know when we're selling that kind of weaponry to someone who has a mental problem. We should know by however we should know. But because people should not be able to, you think about Sandy Hook, that weapon tore through the bodies, like literally tore off body parts. And see, they're not going to, we didn't get a shock treatment like the Emmett Till situation. So we didn't see pictures. Like some of us just got to read reports. So you're like, yeah, for first graders who would be at the level of they would be at the level of purpose, in terms of Erickson development. So they would be learning
did you send me
right
Erickson?
from wrong. Uh,
Did you
I
send me
did.
Erickson?
I didn't. Yeah,
Why?
okay. I will send it.
I'd like to see Erickson.
Okay, I will send it to you. So you're still in the age of innocence. So to come in to intersect with that level of violence is outrageous. And we should be looking at it like that as a country. Like this is outrageous. We should not be saying, "Oh, you have my sympathy." It's like, what is your sympathy going to do when a high-powered weapon ripped through the neck of a first grader in school? What will it
Now you bringing out the historian in me.
Okay, so okay, I gotta stop. I gotta pull off from
All
that
right. All right.
because I'm sorry. I would, I am trying to help everybody understand how important now safety and security is different now. And it
Oh,
has to be
okay.
different for a public school because
Yeah.
now you need other things in place. You need drills so students will know what to do. You need special glass so you can't just shoot through the door and get in and start, wreaking havoc in the schools. You need security in the schools. You need a city response, a police response that will collapse on that situation immediately. You need a plan so you won't have a Uvalde where grown men are sitting outside the door where children are being slaughtered. So you need a plan. And so Maslow's safety and security is different in 2025 than it was in 2005.
Where? Everywhere?
Everywhere because that situation
Because
can
safety and
happen in any
security.
city.
Oh, and I'm glad that's what you went to because safety and security before 1865 during chattel slavery was,
Well, safety and
you
security
know,
back then was a little different. You didn't have those high power weapons.
oh,
A
but yeah,
guy
but
had a
you
sporting
still
chance.
had lynchings. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. So, so,
Um,
so that's different. The reason
Jim
I say
Crow.
different, the reason I say that it's different because
Huh.
people at that point, at that time, it was illegal for them to, it wasn't anything that made it legal for them to get an education. They actually did things to make it illegal for certain populations to get an education. And so
Mhm.
because it was illegal, that made it easy for people to not engage, even the people that would benefit from the education. Even
Mhm.
black people or enslaved people, because it didn't have to be black,
Mhm.
they didn't even want to try because of the danger of doing it. But see, that's a whole nother show, Dr. Bowden.
I know, but what I was going to do was actually move forward because you go from that to Jim Crow, and you have the same deal. Look at Brown versus Board of Education, and then the young lady in Mississippi coming into the school, the busing situation in the 60s.
Mhm.
So that threat of violence, it is not necessarily a particular caliber of bullet, but this devastation has always been present.
Absolutely. So safety and security meant something different in 1960 and in the you- when he even introduced it in 1943, because you were just coming out of Nazi Germany. Well, you hadn't come out yet. So, um, right.
So
So
this is a model that stands the test of time. It just,
that's why it's the brilliance of it. That's why Maslow, there are certain philosophies that are just brilliant because
and
it stands the test of time.
did you send me Erickson's?
No, not yet.
Really? That's how they do?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, because
So,
we're so into this
okay.
conversation.
All right. Well, take me up to the next level then.
Okay,
Let's
so the
not,
next
I don't want to get you
level,
ahead.
okay, so we love and belonging. Here's what's concerning about love and belonging. We exist in a social media cancel culture. And so we exist in a culture where people don't understand, people are starting to understand that there is an advantage in being hostile. There's an advantage in being
Oh, you
um,
are so right.
cynical. There's
You
a
are
advantage in
so
being
right.
cynical. There is you can actually monetize um, some of these things. You can monetize
That
incivility.
monetizes better.
You can monetize incivility. So you're in a situation now where we have to at some point we're going to have to teach kindness. We're going to have to teach what it means to just be cordial, respectful, and kind to people. Now, when
Can
it
you?
comes to
That's like legislating morality. Can you teach that?
no, no, but what you can do is you can show that. Because now here's what I've learned. I've learned that, and I don't mind saying, in my 61 years of life, here's what I learned. I've learned that generally, even when you show respect, a kind word turns away wrath. Even when you show respect to somebody that's hostile, when you let them come down off their hostility, they become extremely apologetic. You know why? Because all of a sudden they feel like they're the fool in the matter. They feel like when you just let them act out and just let them act it out, they will spin down. And then I'm sorry, but I just had to. No, you're not sorry. So let's talk about that because you're really not sorry. But here's what I do want to tell you. I would rather be respectful to you. I would rather be able to have a conversation where two adults understand. But I cannot if you're going to insult, if you're going to use profanity. Now I've had to go through this with parents a lot, and staff members. Like if you're going to do that, we cannot have a neutral conversation because you're in a conversation where you want hostility to take over everything. There is no solution in that. It's no solution in you telling me off. There's no outcome
How?
to you telling me
How?
off. So, okay, so
That
let's get
takes
back.
a great deal of decorum.
It
That takes a
does.
great deal of patience.
It does.
And with the numbers you deal with as a superintendent, you're not a classroom teacher dealing, even let's say if you
So
were a
it,
classroom
it it
teacher,
really is an art to it. It's an art to it because there are some times where you have to say, we're going to cut this off. We're not going to deal with this right now. We're going to come back to it in an hour. Like at your planning, that's when we're going to come back to. So there are ways that you have to handle that. Some people don't like confrontation. See, it becomes a
Yes.
problem because people don't like confrontation and they just kind of let other people roll over them.
Is this going to be part of the curriculum of teaching?
Here's why it should be a part of the curriculum of teaching, because we have to love and respect our students. Now, I said respect. Some people would be like, respect a child? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Because that's how you teach them to respect. So, and here's how you respect the child by listening, by saying, okay, okay, John,
Mhm.
tell me.
Now that extends to the university.
Mm-hmm.
That extends to the when I tell people how important their input is,
Mm-hmm.
even if they are quote unquote wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else in the room was thinking the same thing, or you know, this is an opportunity for us to engage where I want you here. That is something that I use daily at the university,
Mm-hmm.
and I would imagine it would be effective in secondary education.
So another thing too, on the human hierarchy of needs, the psychological hierarchy of needs, when you are loving and you let someone know, no, you belong to the community. You can stay in the community. You can be a part of this community. They thrive. You
Yes.
thrive. You thrive more, and your confidence develops. So by the time you're age 7 to 11 on the Erickson scale, you're it's competence. So you're deciding, whether or not you have the self-confidence. Um,
How do you love in this divisive society now?
Society. Yeah, yeah.
If you say the
Well,
wrong, if
yeah,
I
yeah.
call you the wrong pronoun, it's a problem. And it's not just a correction. It's my job is on the line. If I make an analogy in class, it's at the dean before
Yeah,
the day
so
is
you gotta
out.
you have to be, first of all, you just have to be willing to take the risk, and you have to be willing to have an honest conversation. Um, it's funny that you bring up the pronoun. We had a situation where the older individuals kept, saying the wrong pronoun. And we had to ask the person, can you just allow concessions? Just correct them. Don't say, oh, I'm going to sue everybody and they can
Yes.
do better. They can do better. Yes, they can do better. And they are trying to do it. No, they're not. You're just taking up for them. And I wanted to tell them so bad. Here is why. The optics. You, you, you you look like a guy. You don't, and so it's the optics. So what is in front of my face? I have to get my mind right because I got a beard in front of me, but you are a he, a her. See, I just almost said he again, but you are a her. So we gotta, you gotta, at
Oh,
least give people
okay.
a little break.
I know I should do this.
You don't get us in trouble. Because we are trying to talk about kids, though,
We
but
are
this is
we are
this is
we are
this
talking
is
about kids,
actually
but
going into the other
we
developmental stages. This goes
we
into the higher developmental stages in terms of human development, though.
and I'm saying, why is there and
Now, young
like
people are a little bit more forgiving. Young people are a little bit younger, the teaching age, the K-12. They're a little more understanding. And you're like,
are
okay, we
they?
won't do it again. Yeah, I mean, some of them are hostile, but you can handle them because
Okay,
they do understand the adult-child
okay.
dynamic.
My
So,
question and that's really the context. It's like you used a phrase, this person used the wrong pronoun, which is assuming all of the logic up till now has been incorrect, which is not necessarily so. But to be um, kind or to be considerate or whatever, I'm going to make this adjustment inconsistent with traditional thoughts up until now.
Okay.
I find it as egregious when young society is pulling older society at light speed into this new ideology that does not match traditional thinking. So even if I want to subscribe to it, that's not fair. You know exactly why I'm identifying you this way. It's because for 40 or 50 years, that's what I've known.
Well,
You
some
grew up in
people,
this,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Some people just refuse to comply. And
and there's a degree of logic
so
to that.
yeah, and so when you're working out a what do I want to call it? When you're working out a like a compromise, some people need to understand that this person's never going to accept that. And so we just have to, there's no way that we can eliminate one or both of you. So we're going to have to figure out how you coexist. And, sometimes it's settled with lawsuits, but you
But
figure it out,
okay, Jordan Peters,
hmm
his issue being that of compelled speech.
hmm hmm
What say you as a superintendent? If I say I'm being compelled to use particular pronouns and I disagree with controlled language.
Yeah, yeah. So, Jordan Peterson has his own, philosophy. Like, he really believes that, you need to stand your ground on your beliefs. It's like he really
I think
believes.
you
And so,
doesn't everybody?
yeah, 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 they do. Some people would rather just kind of float away from it instead of just um uh it reminds me of the North and the Southbound. It was a Dr. Seuss special. And they were on this road. One was going northbound and one was going southbound.
Mhm.
And they met up in the middle. They could not finish their journey because they refused to step any anywhere off course other than north or south. I forget what it
I'm
was,
I
but
got
okay,
you.
you see
I
what I'm
got
saying?
you.
So they ended
But
up standing there until the world ended. So when you're face to face, you got to step a little bit to the right or to the left so that you could get past them to keep your journey to keep going. Like you can't, I mean, or
right.
you can say they don't exist. Now, if you're a leader, a school leader, you don't have that kind of, and I listen to Jordan Peterson and I get his, some of his ideology is, yeah, it's, you got to really think about it. And some of it I just don't agree with. But he really believes that you should stand your ground with that. The thing is, the world is going to continue to change. And what it did around those, I wish I could think of what that was. The South going, I forget, the North going, I forget what it was. Um, I was just, it was just funny how the world ended up progressing around them and they just
But
stood there and yeah.
but what I'm saying is I don't think that there's anything wrong with being kind or considerate.
Mhm.
What I think does not necessarily hold bearing on the outcome. If I think this person is a male or a female,
I did send you Erickson now.
okay. Well,
Uh-huh.
of course, you would send Erickson when we have a few more minutes. Anyway, what it's that's something I what I try to do is I try to give full disclosure at the beginning and working with old teenagers or young adults is definitely different from K through 12. But
hmm
I try to make it clear. I mean no offense, okay? And I'm not an expert in the social changes. Forgive me if I misstep because but I do try to avoid pronouns altogether. I try if I know your name, correct.
Wow. I mean, that might be a genius way to get around
Yeah.
that.
I
So,
try not to say him, her. Yeah, as I say you,
mm. So,
this
you know,
person.
so okay, so I do want to okay, so calling somebody by their pronoun might end up being directly impactful to their self-esteem, right? And that's their individual choice to make that happen. So when we're teaching children, we need to understand that if a child's identifying with whatever, I get a little confused over the Furbies, where they're identifying with animals and cats and dogs and stuff. As I'm like,
I see no difference.
I don't know
I
how
see
that.
no difference.
I do because I'm like, no, you are
Okay, once
not
we
a
see
dog or
now
a cat.
we're about to turn
I
this to a
cannot
personal
provide you
conversation
with a litter
because
box in this
I
bathroom.
can't I okay. I'm just saying
Well, I could
once
provide you with a single bathroom that says, both
once
genders,
we break
all genders can go in.
once we break the framework of hundreds of years of mammalian biology, where does adjustment end and whatever begin? So when we start, yeah, so I'm saying the Furby is just as illogical as the 23 genders to older thinkers of the traditional framework.
Yeah, well, an older thinker will just say, okay, that's complete nonsense. And they will be done.
I agree that
Like,
an older
we're
person would
not
think
going
that.
to
Not
do
to say
this.
that anyone in
That
this
is just true.
conversation is an older thinker, but
Hmm.
I got Erickson.
Okay.
Um, how do you feel Erickson aligns or doesn't align with
I'm sorry.
Maslow, and is it functioning within Maslow?
Yeah. So, yeah. And I actually was going back and forth,
Yeah, I noticed. That's why I asked for
yeah,
it.
yeah, helping you to understand.
But
Well, really,
stop.
how
Do
it,
you notice something?
mhm.
Remember, I asked the question, where is trust in Maslow? And
Hmm.
Erickson starts off with it.
Yeah, 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 because 0 to 1, you got to trust somebody to take care of you. And so when you're abused as a baby, you
Mm.
don't have the same faith in adults that as a baby that wasn't abused.
Now, how
So,
old is Erickson? We
um,
got Maslow is 1943.
um,
Let me
let me
see.
see. Let me see what's developed. Forget.
Erickson. I just want to get a historical framework. Okay, so he's 1902 to 19. So this is a serious overlap.
Yeah, yeah, they were around the same time.
Oh,
They
nice.
started
Okay, okay,
a lot of these educational frameworks like Bloom's taxonomy, Erickson, human development, because Bloom's is cognitive. Erickson is human development social, is social cycle.
okay.
And also Maslow is psychological.
So it's Bloom,
Bloom
BL.
taxonomy, we're going to do a show on that. Bloom's taxonomy is the human cognitive development. So
Okay,
with Bloom are the philosophers like Jean Rousseau and Jean Piaget. Um, Gosh, I'm trying to think of that Chilean philosopher. Um, oh God, the empty cylinder philosopher. Anyway, it's a whole different conversation. Is a whole
okay,
different conversation because so what we're talking about now is the psychological stages or the developments, the things to move up the psychological scale. So although you're going through those stages that Erickson described, there are some things that need to happen that you can scale up the psychological scale of Maslow, safely. Like you got to have the first thing is physical. You got to have something that's a place that's physically safe and secure, that's consistent for you to
okay.
even develop. And then it
So
goes up to safety and security. That's family. your social ability to belong to a group. That's how street gangs can pick off those little boys off the street because they're in a unstable environment, and they pull them into a family environment that gives them safety and security. It
So
also
are both
can
of
give them a
these
place to
psychosocial stages? Are both of, or is one
no,
psychological and the other one?
one describes the human development stages. The other describes what the needs are, the
Okay,
psychological
okay.
need for
So
you to progress.
help me with the psychological. Show me how they relate. The needs create
Okay,
the
so
stage.
so okay, so they relate. They're not parallel. They're not. They can't. You can't put them parallel and figure out places they connect. What it
Okay.
is that okay. Erickson describes what happens to you at age
Mhm,
groups.
mhm.
Maslow describes what happens to you if some of your psychological needs are not met. Like your psychological needs, and your psychological needs starts with physiological. It starts with you having food, you
Right.
having a safe place to sleep, a safe place to do all of the things that a human has to do in order to survive or thrive. The second level of need is safety and security because you could have that place to stay, but it's not the place is not safe and it's not secure because there's a parent drinking, a parent beating another parent, so it could be things that disrupt you or a parent that beats children or a parent that's a pedophile. It could be things that makes your space not safe. And
Now
then the next,
you still develop
yeah, you still
if you
develop.
don't have these things.
Yeah, but there are disruptions.
And with these disruptions, you're going to see the psychological
Breakdown.
impacts.
Yes, the breakdown of the human and how their human developmental stages become disrupted, which will cause maybe a delay. It might cause them to sink into adverse experiences, or it might cause them to sink into alcoholism. It's things that it could throw you off the healthy human development progression.
But
You know,
if I don't have the psychological needs,
met.
I still move to
You
safety and
still, yes,
security,
you
but
still.
with I'm disabled up here.
So let's not let's focus more on the human developmental stages with
Okay.
that which is Erickson, which are those stages that help you to develop into a psychological healthy human.
All right.
Okay, it's those stages that helps you to develop into a healthy human being, right?
Mhm.
So it's the in Maslow, it's whether how these needs are met, to what degree these needs are met, that makes it easier for you to develop through these human stages.
Okay. So
See what I'm saying?
with 30 seconds, how do we
Mhm.
close this out?
Okay, we close this out by saying, when they get the first three stages, physiological safety and love and belonging, your self-esteem becomes easier to develop, or it develops with more confidence, knowing how to having expectations on how you should be treated and how you should treat others and how you